It started with the sound of hydraulics hissing at 6 in the morning, right outside my window. I hadn't even finished my first cup of coffee yet when I stepped out and saw a massive red tow truck flaming hawk painted across the side pulling up next to my Jeep, which was still tucked beneath a military-grade camo net. And standing proudly beside it, Dana, the HOA president, clipboard in hand, smug look glued to her face like she'd just won a neighborhood war. Now, before I get into the mess that followed, let me back up a bit. Just 2 days earlier, I'd returned home from a special military assignment. Nothing combatoriented more, like a domestic recon drill meant to test community tolerance and signal integrity under civilian conditions. The neighborhood I lived in, nestled in a sleepy corner of Willow Glen, was perfect for this type of operation. The Department of Defense had tagged it as an ideal test bed, and my role was to quietly monitor response patterns while parking a Recon-modified Jeep within a predefined zone. My vehicle had clearance, a red military tag, official sticker, and federal authorization. Parked legally, directly in front of my own house. But Dana wasn't the type to notice details when her mind had already made up a story. She saw a camo Jeep and decided it was trash. Worse than that, she saw it as a threat to her self-imposed rule of law. She was the kind of person who held on to power like it was a birthright, wore sunglasses even at night, patrolled the sidewalks with a whistle, and enforced HOA bylaws so outdated, the paper was yellowed and dog-eared. Within hours of my return, Dana had taken photos of the Jeep from 3 different angles, left 2 notes on my windshield, and knocked on my door twice. The second time she showed up, I asked politely if she'd read the clearance tag. She didn't even blink. Said, "Anyone can print a sticker. I don't care if it says NASA, CIA, or Mickey Mouse. You can't just dump military junk in a family neighborhood and call it patriotism." I tried to explain gently that I was a terrain safety officer on federal orders. But she cut me off with that pinched lip smirk and said, "If that vehicle isn't gone by sunrise, it's getting towed." Then she turned and barked at a kid across the street for having chalk on the sidewalk. That night, I radioed my CO. Let him know civilian interference had begun ahead of schedule. He laughed, told me to observe, not intervene. "Sometimes," he said, "the test starts itself." So I prepped, calibrated the Jeep's passive defense systems, double-checked the lockdown protocol, and waited. Sure enough, morning rolled in and so did the tow truck. Driver's name was Len. Big guy, mustache like a badger. Looked like he hadn't read a warning label since 1989. Dana stood beside him, pointing at the Jeep like a game show prize. "There it is. Told you it was abandoned. Hook it up." Len didn't even pause. He walked right past the red military sticker, lowered the windshield. That's when the Jeep buzzed. A low metallic hum, followed by a calm robotic voice. "Tow attempt detected. Federal override engaged." Lights blinked red across the dashboard. The wheels locked into place. The door snapped shut like it had teeth. Len froze. Dana took half a step back. "What is that?" she shrieked. "Is that even legal?" I stepped out onto my porch, coffee in hand. "Might want to back away," I said. "You've triggered the defense protocol." Len blinked. Then bam. His tow truck dashboard went black. No lights. No engine. Nothing but silence and that awful realization dawning on his face like he just kicked a hornet's nest in a minefield. And then the SUVs arrived. 2 matte black vehicles rolled around the corner, unmarked but unmistakably federal. Tactical agents stepped out. No sirens, no announcements. Just quiet, controlled movement. One walked up to Dana, looked her dead in the eye, and asked for ID. She pointed at the Jeep, still stuck on her favorite narrative. "That thing's blocking the street. It's an eyesore." What she didn't know, what she couldn't accept, was that she'd just interfered with a classified DoD operation. That wasn't just a Jeep. That was a sensor-equipped, signal-mapping recon vehicle authorized under Federal Drill Code Alpha 7. And she just inserted herself right into the heart of it. The agent turned to me. "Operator 11. I nodded. He handed me a sealed envelope, nodded again, and said, "Protocol validated. Civilian interference confirmed." Dana's face went from smug to ghostly pale in 5 seconds flat. The agent turned back to her. "Ma'am, we'll need a full statement. You're now part of an active Department of Defense investigation." That sentence alone did more damage than any military briefing I could have delivered. Dana stammered. Denied everything. Said I made it up. Said my uniform was fake. Said her HOA rights gave her the power to regulate street parking. The agents didn't flinch. They took her clipboard, asked her to sit down, and began scanning her phone for video evidence. Across the street, I saw neighbors peeking out. Mr. Callahan raised a mug in my direction and gave a quiet thumbs up. Someone else mouthed about time. That moment, it was sweet, but it wasn't the end. Later that day, I got a fine, $250, for unauthorized surveillance equipment, courtesy of the HOA board. And who signed it? Dana. She didn't even bother to hide her name. So I strolled over to her garage-turned office, handed her my clearance packet with the official language redacted but enough to make the point, and said, "You might want to update your records. Also, Homeland Security's happy to clarify what constitutes federal clearance." She slammed the door in my face. The next few days were wild. Dana filmed my house with a selfie stick, calling it a threat zone. Len, the tow truck guy, brought me gas station coffee and a nervous apology. Meanwhile, rumors flew. People thought I was part of a secret ops team. Others said the Jeep was watching every move. I didn't correct anyone. Let the mystery simmer. But the best part? The Department of Defense had enough footage to launch a federal audit of the HOA. 3 days later, 2 men in suits parked outside Dana's place. Papers were served. An audit had begun. That evening, Dana called for an emergency HOA meeting about federal overreach. Flyers went out. I got one. Framed it. I showed up, of course, just in time for her slideshow titled Defending Willow Glen. She tried to paint herself as the victim, claimed I weaponized the Jeep to intimidate the community. So I walked to the front, handed her a printed packet, declassified excerpts of my orders, a freeze frame from the dash cam showing her trying to peel the sticker off, and waited. The room erupted. Neighbors gasped. Some laughed. Mr. Monroe from 2 doors down stood up and said, "Carinu, Dana, how many times you gonna lie? First it was abandoned, then it was fake military, now the feds are in on it." The vote to suspend her as HOA president passed 41-2. Her and one lonely vote from a woman who looked like she'd signed out of habit. You'd think that would have ended it, right? Nope. Dana went off the rails. Filed noise complaints against me for engine idling even though the Jeep hadn't moved in days. Claimed my imaginary dog attacked her fence. Slipped fake HOA notices into mailboxes about mandatory shrub regulations. My neighbors fought back with lawn decorations, military gnomes, toy tanks. Even someone installed a tiny American flag in a flower pot with a sticker that read, "Recon ready." And then came the cookout. I rolled out the tactical barbecue. You need a glorified grill trailer decked out with fake antennas, blinking lights, and a smoke machine. Invited the neighborhood. Kids ran obstacle courses, music played, burgers sizzled. Even local cops showed up, grabbed a hot dog, and laughed when Dana called it a paramilitary operation. She lost it. But it wasn't until she crept out one morning, hoodie on, roller in hand, trying to paint a gray line across the Jeep's bumper, that I knew she'd finally snapped. I walked up quietly, sipped my coffee, and said, "This Jeep has more surveillance than your entire house. Your prints are already logged." She didn't argue, just sat on the curb and muttered about how things used to be. By the time she got the trespassing citation, she barely reacted. A week later, her house went up for sale. No goodbye, no farewell, just gone. Now, the neighborhood's different. People smile more. HOA meetings involve lemonade instead of fines. Kids play freely. Dana's house? Dark. Quiet. The only reminder she was ever here is a dented clipboard someone hung on the community board like a trophy. And the Jeep? Still parked out front. Still matte black. Still untouched. 1 year later, I got a cake. Chocolate. Shaped like a Jeep. Card read, "To the calmest storm we've ever had. Thanks for winning the war." And I didn't win it by yelling, or fighting, or breaking the rules. I just let the truth breathe and watched the chaos collapse on itself. So tell me, have you ever dealt with a neighbor who went too far? Someone who thought control gave them power, but forgot about consequences? Drop your story in the comments. Let's talk about HOA madness, personal rights, and the fine line between order and overreach.